Hello, beautiful alchemist. Welcome to Reiki Radio. I am your host, Yolanda, and happy autumn equinox. I am very excited to be with you today for this conversation because our guest, her name is Kathleen Johnson. I actually met her through the Reiki Rays Global Healing Summit. And in fact, she is a presenter at this year's summit, which will come out in November later this year. But in the summit, we had a discussion about Reiki. However, her work also includes what she calls the angelic activation. So I asked her if I could have a conversation with her about this because I know that several of you listeners either work with the angelic realm, have questions about it, maybe curious about it, or maybe this is totally new for you. But wherever you fall in the spectrum, this was an interesting conversation. So, Kathleen, she has a background in psychology and criminology, and she worked in law enforcement until she was diagnosed with a chronic illness in 1995. And that's what made her not only retire, but go on this path of seeking Reiki and other things that she began to study. So you'll find out in the conversation how she went very deep actually into past life regression therapy, and she became a facilitator of that. And we may even have her back on the podcast to discuss that because that was very interesting to dabble into. But one of the things that was so unexpected for her was this process now that she has called the angelic activation that she facilitates with another woman named Jody. So we are going to learn about her connection to the angels, how this happened, and what an angelic soul is, and what these angelic activations are, and how you can learn more about it and see where you fall in the spectrum if you're interested. So get ready for a very interesting conversation. Don't forget, if you want to join me for Intuitive Mastery, register right away. Or if you register for the Alchemy Circle 2026, if you do that before November 5th, you'll have automatic access to Intuitive Mastery. But I also want to remind you that if you want to learn more about Kathleen and her work, go to universalsoulheart.net. The link will be down in the show description. She also has a book called Let Reiki Guide the Way. I will put the link for that in the show description. And she has a new community called Soul Community. It is an acronym, SOUL, and there's the link for that. So enjoy this conversation, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, everyone, we are here today with the beautiful Kathleen Johnson of universalsoulheart.net. Kathleen, I do want to thank you, first of all, for taking time to have this conversation today.
Thank you for having me, Yolanda. It's great to see you again. And it's always
Yes.
a pleasure to speak with you, especially about our topic today.
Yes. Well, that's what I'm so excited about because I've just let everyone know I had the opportunity to interview Kathleen for the upcoming Reiki Rays Global Healing Summit. And in that arena, we have beautiful discussions around, Reiki energy healing. And Kathleen is a Reiki practitioner. Do you also teach Reiki?
I don't now.
Yes.
I did for quite a
Yes.
few years. Mhm.
Yes. But you are very, I will say, engrossed into the realm of energy healing and energy work.
Yes.
But
Hmm.
what I learned in having that conversation with you is that you also have this connection to the angelic realm. And you have a program that includes an angelic activation. So I was very curious about that. So, firstly, I just wanted to ask so we can get some background of how you got into this work because you have a background in psychology, criminology. How did you end up in this work, in this path?
That's always a great question because, like many people, Reiki was a huge turn for
Yeah.
me, like a big, what I thought was a detour in my life. Yeah, you're right. I have a background in psychology. I have a graduate degree in criminology and in mental health counseling. And I also, my first career was in law enforcement. I
Wow.
was a major crimes detective. So talk about a left turn.
Yeah.
So I was diagnosed with a chronic illness back in 1995 when I was working in law enforcement, and I had to take an early retirement. So it was around that time that I really started to get into my spirituality and really look into things that interested me. And I got very involved in past lives and reincarnation, and ultimately trained to be a past life regression therapist, which
Yeah.
was my first, I guess, official foray into the spiritual world. But Reiki found me. I mean, it usually does, right?
Yes.
I really wasn't looking for it. I didn't really even know what it was. I had seen the word advertised in different places, but okay, never thought much about it. But going through a particularly dark time in my life with one of our sons, I had a conversation with a young woman who was taking a Reiki class. And she was telling me about this, and I'm like, wow, that sounds really interesting. I said, I doubt we have anything like that around here because I live in a rural area. And I said, but I'll look into it. Well, lo and behold, there was a teacher down the road, like 15 minutes from me,
Wow.
who had a class starting in 2 weeks. I signed up for Reiki 1, and the rest is history. I
Yeah.
was amazed. And I knew right then and there that this was something I had to do. It was just that quick. Not only take the training up to master level, but to create a practice. I knew I had to do that.
Yeah.
It was like that instant.
Well,
I know it was completely guided.
it's wild hearing your story because I'm like, wow, we could do a whole, like a series of interviews about you and the life that you've lived because even prior to coming into this work, I'm sure you have fascinating stories. And you did mention the past life regression. And I wanted to ask you about that too. So, what even drew you into that interest? And did you, did that give you any insight or curiosity about, you know, our, I guess, our human design or function, reincarnation, these sorts of things? What really stood out
Oh,
for you with that?
oh yes. Reincarnation had always been an interest of mine. Even as a child, I was interested in the supernatural, as I
Yeah.
referred to it. I would read about things like spooky things, things that go bump in the night, and I couldn't get enough of it. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But it was a chance comment, and I use the word chance in quotes, from a coworker in the 80s that got me into looking into past lives. I just happened to be passing her office door one day, and she was talking to another coworker, and I heard her say the word reincarnation, and my head swiveled, and it was like the bolt from the blue. I thought, oh my gosh, I need to know more about this. So I started teaching myself. I mean, this was before Google,
Right.
right? You actually had to go and get a book if you wanted to know anything. Um, But I did. I looked up everything I could find on reincarnation and past lives, which ultimately led me to Linda Backman. You may have heard of her. She is a very well-known past life regression therapist, and she's just published her fourth book, I believe, about it. I ultimately took a regression with her, and I was so enthralled with the whole experience. I trained with her then. I
Yeah.
went through the training. And I'm in the process of training to be a between lives regression
Oh,
therapist at this
wow.
point. So we'll see how that works out. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love it. Honestly, past lives was my first love. But Reiki and past lives are about the same these days.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you find, just curious again, because I don't think I've ever interviewed a past life regressionist, have you found that there is this tie-in with healing? I mean, I imagine that's why people even get regressed because there's something
Yes.
that they're stuck in and this kind of
Yep.
helps.
Yep. That's why I scheduled my first regression. I had some questions about why am I this way or why do I do this and that kind of thing. It answered so many questions for me. And it was really healing. And in my work with past lives, because I practiced past life regression for a while
Hmm.
before I entered into Reiki, um, that's what normally happened. Somebody would emerge from it's almost like a trance state, altered state, and with a sense of, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yes.
But what happens during the past life regression is that when the information comes forward in your conscious, in your superconscious, you are then able to look at it, discuss it with your guides, and get a sense that, okay, this happened for a reason, but I can let this go. I
Mm.
don't need this in my current incarnation. And very often, the issue that was troubling the individual just goes poof and it's gone. And that happened to me because I remember my first past life session was I was regressed to a life when I was a little girl whose father had been hanged for some government infraction.
Mm.
And I was kicking up such a fuss about it. I don't remember all the details, but they actually then hanged me too when I was
Oh, wow.
about a 10-year-old little girl. And I have always had a weird mark around my neck that looked like almost like a rope had been there.
Hmm.
After that session, it was no longer there.
Wow.
It was the oddest thing.
Well, it's a thing.
I
It makes our consciousness and how it functions even that much more fascinating. I think that's why I love this entire realm because of the
Mhm.
exposure of how we really function,
Yeah,
and what it means to be a human. So I know I don't have you all day. And one of the main things I wanted to talk to you about was the angels. So I wanted to know where in the story this became an area of interest or a curiosity for you. How did you get in connection with the angels or recognize it
good
anyway?
question. I just want to say one more thing about
Yeah,
past lives.
please.
We just need to remember that when we come into an incarnation, when we come into a body, our cells carry the memories of all those lives.
Yeah.
So we are then able to bring them forward and deal with them properly so they don't continue to get in our way. You
Wow.
know,
Yeah.
if we are walking around with those memories, but under, in everyday life, we typically don't remember them.
Yep.
So,
It's really, really interesting. Because when
yeah.
we have like a whole nother, my mind just went
Oh,
down a
we
whole
could.
nother. Yeah, I know. I know.
I
So,
could talk about past life work all day.
well, maybe we'll have another conversation about that because, like I said,
Okay.
your journey leaves a lot to explore and learn about. So, with the angels, though, was this something that was already on your radar, or how did you come
Not
into
really.
connection with them?
Again, spirit does work in its own way
Yeah.
that is baffling to the rest of us, but it works. In my Reiki practice, I would work with the angels. I mean, I'd sense them in my sessions, and there were a few that I preferred, like Metatron, Raphael, Michael, of course. Michael's
Yeah.
always the crowd favorite.
Yes.
um, but there wasn't anything, beyond that. But several years ago, I had a client who I worked with for a long time, a couple of years, and I started to get the feeling from her that there was much more to her than met the eye. And I started getting the sense that she had angelic, angelic beginnings, angelic origin.
Mm.
And she had always felt that too. And I had nothing, no frame of reference about that. But we talked about it, and then she started to emerge and with her angelic soul. She was, sorry, there's a gnat here.
Oh.
um, she was an angelic soul. I didn't know what that was, but during the course of my work with her, that emerged. And I was getting strong information that, yes, this woman is an angelic soul and she has things to tell you, and you
Mm-hmm.
have things to tell her. So throughout her work with me, she started channeling the angels and speaking with Michael and other angels. And one day I received an email from her, and this was in 2019, I think, or 2018. And she said, I was just speaking with Michael, and he wanted me to tell you that you are an angelic activation practitioner. And she said, I don't know what that means, but he wanted me to give you that message. And I read that and I burst into tears.
Wow.
The emotion of that just was, I can feel it again, just like, oh my goodness. It felt so true. It was so true. It just
Yeah.
felt true. It resonated, as we say.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't know what that meant. What does that mean? What do I do? So I looked it up. I'm Googling, I'm trying to get, I could find almost nothing. There was a few things, but they really didn't apply. It was kind of connected, but not really. So I sort of put it aside and just carried on with my work. Um, but I noticed over time, since that email, as I worked with clients, I was starting to get a very clear sense of their soul origin.
Mm.
And specifically with angelic souls, it was like I'd be talking to somebody and I'd think, she's an angelic soul. I know she's an angelic soul.
Yeah.
But I was careful to not like just drop that on people
Yes.
because it's one of those things like, well, what do you mean by that? And
Yeah.
but if I was working with someone regularly, I would bring it up and say, how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
And but I was able to start identifying those souls who were angelic.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know anything. I was like, I don't know. But then Linda Backman, again, who has figured prominently in my spiritual life, had written a book about soul types in her work with, regressing people. She has been able to identify at least three soul types, angelic souls, interplanetary souls, and earth-based. And so I started learning more about angelic souls by speaking with Linda and working with her. And that made my ability to sense these individuals even stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of this goes back to Linda. Our relationship goes back 18 years now that we've worked together. And all right, so then, as you know, I was co-hosting a podcast, Beyond the Reiki Gateway, back in 2020, 21. And Andrea and I were doing our podcast, and I was looking for guests. I was, kind of just keeping my eye open for potential guests. And I came across a woman named Jody Helm who writes on Medium, and she channels the archangels. I thought, oh, she'd be an interesting guest because I'm interested in angels.
Yes.
I get the angels all the time. I don't really see them, but I sense them. And so I contacted Jody and asked her to be on our show. And she came on. She was on for, I think, two or three times. But she and I had such a connection, such a strong connection out of the box. And I knew she was an angelic soul. I mean, and I told her, I just spit it out. I said, you're an angelic soul. She's like, what? What? Because I said, yeah, you definitely are an angelic soul. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Um, so then I said to her, look, can you channel the archangels and ask them what it is that I am? I've been told I'm an angelic activation practitioner, and I want to know what that is and what I need to do about it, if anything.
Yes.
And she got right back to me. She said, oh my goodness. She said, as soon as you asked the questions, the angels wouldn't leave me alone. She said, they were like, we got to talk to you. We got to talk to you. We got to talk to you. And they told her that she and I had shared many, many incarnations going way back, as far as the galactic wars as we can determine. And we were brought here together to incarnate for many reasons, but one of them was to further the shift into higher dimensions that we are currently experiencing
Mm-hmm.
by activating angelic souls, because of the condition on planet Earth at this time, it has been decided in spirit that angelic souls who have not yet realized the connection to the angelic realm need to be activated right away, because we need all hands on deck, so to speak.
Yeah.
So Jody and I were brought together in this way to create this group of people who would then create groups of their own and a network of angelic souls. And just the vibration of these individuals, especially when they've been activated, does so much for the evolution of the planet. And that's how it started. We were given orders, if you will, from the archangels.
Yeah.
Jody would get the information. I would get it too, but not like Jody. She just channels them. I would get information in my sleep. I'd wake up and and I better write that down.
Yeah.
Or in a session, they would tell me something. Um, we were given clear directions of how this program needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I would say 60 to 70% of the program from start to finish was directly from the angel.
Wow. Okay, so I have to ask you something because, well, I mean, there's a lot of things from even just what you've shared so far, but one, is there a sense, you mentioned their vibration and how their
Mm-hmm.
vibration alone can be very helpful to this plane. And you also mentioned, in describing the two of you, you had several incarnations together and you came here for many reasons, right? Because,
Mm-hmm.
and that struck me just because a lot of times people feel so desperate to understand their purpose. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of purpose, even though there may be
Right.
something that seems very kind of ominous to us. We're like, what is that one other thing? I can't quite touch it. But
Right.
from the work that you've done in meeting these people, does there seem to be a reason? Like, what is it that they came to do? Or is it a variety? Did they all come to share whatever their gift may be in a different way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. I think the commonality is love.
Mm,
It's love.
yeah.
One of the messages I consistently receive during the activations that I perform is that of being heart-centered and focusing on love energy, not just love itself, but all
Right.
the related energies like gratitude, harmony, compassion, kindness. I mean, go on and on, love
Right.
energies. But that's the commonality. Now, how each of these individuals um, experiences that and shares it is unique to them.
Yes.
I mean, I have in my angelic group, I think of them as I'm kind of like I feel like a mother hen,
Yeah.
okay, ladies and guys, because we have some men. Um, there's one or two who the angels communicate through their animals. It's awesome because they're very much into their animals,
Mhm.
and the angels communicate with these individuals through their animals, which is really the coolest thing, you
Yeah.
know. Some are just they communicate almost like Jody does with they hear it in their head and that's what it is. It's like it's a verbal, but they're not trance channeling where they're, under somebody else's control.
Right.
There some others still are, it's just their vibration because they vibrate at a higher frequency because their souls have originated in the angelic realm. They are not angels. Now
Hmm.
that's something that is definitely worth, emphasizing. They're
Yeah.
not angels, but their souls originated in the angelic realm for the purpose of aiding humanity. That's basically it. Angelic souls also incarnate infrequently. They don't incarnate all that often.
Hmm.
only when it's necessary. And the fact that we are having more and more of these souls come to Earth and being activated at this time is very telling about the state that we are in. So spirit is really working overtime on our behalf, as are the beings on other worlds,
Mm-hmm.
in other worlds. So yeah, but I would say the commonality is love. Now, how that manifests, how it's experienced, how it's received by those with whom they interact is
Mm-hmm.
different, of course, because we're unique. Each
So
one of us is unique.
yeah, and do these people, I have a couple of questions or two. One, do they tend to work with angels or the angelic realm? Or do they tend to feel some kind of resonance with that even prior to knowing that I have this connection to the angelic realm? Also, though, because you have this connection to the past life regression and your colleague being familiar with angelic souls, have you
Mm-hmm.
noticed between both sides of the work, what you're doing and also the past life piece,
Mm-hmm.
that again, like some kind of information that these people say about what their, I guess their the essence of them, like why their soul wanted to be as such, or and do they?
You mean you mean in a past life setting, or
Yeah, so in the past life regressions, if they've ever, were in another time as this angelic soul, have
mm-hmm.
there ever been bits of information coming across of like what that role or that duty, like this thing of love, have they given
Mm-hmm.
any indication of helping us even understand love differently than how we may perceive it in our humanness?
That's a lot. Yeah, first of all, let me say that because of my past life training and work, I frequently receive past life information in Reiki sessions, and
Yes.
that started happening way before I became intimately involved with the archangels. Um, and when I work with these angelic souls, almost always I have a past life. I get past life information.
Yeah.
I'll get a flash or an image, or even sometimes I'll see a scene play out in my head. But most of these people that I've worked with in which I've experienced that past life type of element, they were healers.
Mm,
They were healers, which makes sense,
right.
you know, but healers in various ways, different times in history, um, in different nationalities and ethnic groups, a lot of indigenous healers I
Mhm.
get. So yeah, to answer your question, I hope that's what you were
Yeah.
asking, but there are a lot of commonalities around the healing focus. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. No,
Absolutely.
yeah, I was kind of tangled in how to ask that, but
That's
that
all
was the
right.
perfect answer. Thank you so much. But
Hmm.
also curious too, because I think a lot of people hear about the archangels. They seem to be
Hmm.
very popular.
Oh, they are.
And in this work, are they the ones that people are only working with, or are there other angels that are working with humanity?
I would say yes to both.
Hmm.
An angelic soul, when activated, has access to the archangels, and they are the architects of this program, as I've
Right.
said earlier. They're the ones who basically told us what to do. We're going, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Um, so they are the architects, and they're the ones who designed it and wanted us to do it. But okay, so okay, I lost my train of thought.
It's like
What was the
angels
just
and
refresh my
archangels.
memory?
We're working with
Oh
both
yes, oh
angels.
yes.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No,
I go
perfect.
off on a tangent and then I forget what the original question was. Yes, however, because I mean, once you're able to work with the archangels, it the other angels are just kind of there. I mean, it's
Mm,
all part of it, you know, it's we can't really parse it out. It isn't as if the archangels are this group that's all by itself. They
Gotcha.
aren't. It's the energy of the archangels, which is unlike any energy I've experienced, but the energy of the angels is very similar.
Mhm.
Not the archangels, the angels,
Right.
and high guides. I mean, they have the opportunity to channel high guides as well. And when I talk about high guides, I'm talking about like Master Jesus, Ganesh, all the gods and goddesses, all those. I mean, so yeah, it opens up the pathways to channel the archangels and high guides, and of course the angels, the angelic realm, because they're working in the angelic realm, so therefore they have access to those in the angelic realm.
Right.
No,
So
maybe
in this,
go ahead. I'm sorry. I
oh
was just going
no,
to make a
yes.
clarification about angelic souls. They are pre-wired upon birth
Right.
to communicate with the archangels. They are pre-wired. So at some point in their lives, they are going to realize that they can do this. That's what happened to Jody. She was in
Yeah.
her 50s. I mean, she was a retired teacher. She was kind of like, yes, footloose and fancy free. And then this dropped in her lap. Um, so they are pre-wired. And but because of the shift that we are currently experiencing, they needed to be activated earlier, the ones that are, around. And there's a lot
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that really was related to my question. So people who um, are called and or hear about this angelic activation, is it something that helps them to clarify their communication with the angelic realm? And then also curious about the difference between, because I notice on the site you have kind of a path or a track for the angelic souls, but then also another track for the practitioners. So
Mm-hmm.
what kind of determines that? But no matter what, does the activation just help to clarify that communication that's there?
Yes, the activation can be extremely clarifying. But again, everyone's experience is different,
Yeah.
right? Some people it's almost like a light switch has been flipped on after the activation. Others need a little more practice. And others think they're going to experience it a certain way, but then realize it's not the way because their way is their way.
Right.
It's not going to be like anyone else's way of
Yes.
channeling. So it takes every person is different. Every activation is different. I have lost the ability to be surprised
Yeah.
in an activation session because I always say I expect the unexpected, and the unexpected always shows up. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's all based on the individual, where they are on their path, where they are in their overall journey, soul journey, and what they're here to do and how that is to manifest with them.
Yeah. It's really interesting because it's coming to mind the various ways you see people using their channeling just in general, regardless of who or what they're channeling. Like some
Hmm.
people will author books, some people it's just oral transmission, some
Hmm.
people it may be they're just a really kind person on this planet. Like who knows,
Right,
right? Yeah.
right.
So it's very interesting, but there is something I think that happens for us when we get a validation or an understanding, not dissimilar from even, I'm sure, the past life regressions. There is something, again, like that ominous ache for like our purpose. There's something I just can't put my finger on. And no matter what that thing is, it seems like when we have an answer, even partial, that it really does start to awaken something in us.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's like the snowball effect,
Hmm.
right? You get that validation and this is wonderful. And the way it works is it opens you up even more,
Yeah.
which then gives you more information, which opens you up even more, and
Yes.
so on and so forth. So it's this snowball that's constantly getting bigger and bigger and bigger, just like your perspective, your ability to work with spirit, it's an incredible experience. And what I love about it is there's no, it's not finite. It
Right.
goes on. It's infinite. You
Yes.
know, the levels that can be achieved are infinite. Now, of course, on planet Earth, there is a certain finite
Yeah.
factor on planet Earth. But as far as our souls, it's infinite.
Hmm.
And getting that validation and being able to work with spirit it just captures your soul. It is, there's nothing like it. There's just nothing like it, you know.
Yeah. There's another question around this that, I think a lot of people always have a curiosity about because we'll hear that angels and guides, guardians, they're around us whether we're aware of them or not. And then
Hmm.
if we do have an awareness and maybe cultivate a relationship with them, we may end up having more clarity or these sorts of things.
Hmm.
But the question often is if there's this presence of archangels, people say, well, why do we see what we see? Or why don't they help with this? Or why don't they help with that? Could you talk a little
Hmm.
bit about what you may have learned in terms of permission and
Okay.
if there's any kind of like specified agreements or boundaries around their interaction with us?
It's a good question. Yeah. Well, first of all, we have free will, as you well
Yes.
know. Um, so the archangels are always around us, willing to serve, willing
Mhm.
to report for duty.
Yes.
Um, but we have to invite them, you know,
Yeah.
because we have free will. So they are not going to intervene on our behalf unless they are asked to do so. That's
Yes.
important.
Yep.
And, you know, I've had this experience you said about, you know, people asking for certain things. It's almost like people want proof, right?
Yeah.
That's that can be a slippery slope because let's just say somebody asks for proof and they get it and they're
Mhm.
like, oh, and they're all excited. Well, you know what's going to happen? They're going to want more proof
Right.
and
Yes.
then they're going to want more.
Mhm.
And honestly, spirit doesn't work like that. It's not in the business of providing proof for which is what is ultimately the unprovable,
Yeah.
right? It's spirit.
Hmm.
It's spirit. So, and permission as far, and I'm assuming when you were talking about permission, you were also referring to the types of information we can receive from Archangel. Am I
Yeah. Like,
correct?
yes. So is there similar, like the direction you're going, is there a request that must be made on our end to give them permission to interact with us in a and maybe a more expansive way or a more direct way?
There really isn't any particular ritual
Yeah.
or um, you know, prayer or any an intention. It's very simple. You just simply ask for their help.
Yes.
I mean, I have a daily intention that I set every morning that works very well. I just say, I invite and welcome my principal guides and angels to step forward today with anything I may need in the interest of my highest good.
Yeah.
And that just opens the floodgates.
Yes.
I've invited them. And that's all it needs. I mean, I know some people love their rituals and that's good. That
Mhm.
God bless you. You know, I'm not a big fan of involved rituals. I'm
Yeah.
more like let's get go, let's get this going. I'm more to the point.
Yeah.
Um, so that's really all you need to do. It's just a matter of saying, I invite you.
Yeah.
I need your help. And if you can be specific, if you're struggling with a particular issue, being specific helps.
Yes.
Like I did this morning, I asked for their assistance in this interview
Yeah.
because I wanted to be able to do justice to them and to the program.
Yeah. Well, I think this
But
is a wonderful conversation because a lot of people do have a curiosity and I want to know more about the program and we are going to get there. Thankfully, we
okay.
have time. But I have to tell you this because, when I first came into this realm, I I don't want to say I didn't have an interest in the angels. They just weren't really on my radar.
Hmm.
Outside of at that time, those angel cards were very popular. So that was the
Yes.
only thing I heard about. People were working with angel cards a lot. And then with some classes I would take, you would be guided to invite in the archangels as like the four
Hmm.
directions and this type of thing.
Right.
And so I learned all of that, but it still wasn't, I don't know how to explain. It just was like, okay, this is something I do. I didn't feel any connection to it.
Right.
And
Hmm.
so one day I was listening to a podcast, and it was this woman who works with the angels, and she was talking about how she invited them into her birth, when she was giving birth to her child, and how helpful they were, their energies.
Hmm.
And so I get home, I park, I finish listening to the podcast, and then I have this curiosity of like, what are these angels really about? Just it was like that innocent of a, are
Hmm.
people really like, this is wild, right? And then out of nowhere in my head, I hear Azrael. And I laugh because my only reference to that was the cat on the cartoon The Smurfs. There was Gargamel and he had a cat, Azrael. So I was like, that's weird. But then it popped to mind that someone had gifted me. They sent me a deck of those angel cards. And it happened to be the one that was very specific to archangels. So I thought, well, this is interesting. Let me just go upstairs and open this deck. So I open the deck for the first time, and as I'm taking it out of the box, some slip out of my hand, fall on the floor. What card is there? Archangel Azrael. And I'm like, what? And but if I got freaked out because it was like the archangel of death and transformation. I was like, what? Like, oh my God. But then all of a sudden I feel this thickening, like this energy that was so palpable. Like it felt like my living room all of a sudden felt crowded.
Wow.
And
Yes.
it's like I explained, like it was overwhelming almost of like
Hmm.
how thick and quickly these
Yes.
energies came in. And I was terrified because it was just so shocking and unexpected. And then it was almost like telepathically. I got this quick message that was basically, people can ask us to help with parking spots and all this. Okay, it's fine. But people need to know that if they ask us why we're here, or if they perceive us and they ask us how we can support them, there's more to be revealed about why we're here. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It was kind of like there's
Yes.
no judgment around the fact that you're asking us for parking spots, but I mean, do you really think that's why we're here? Do you see? It was kind of like a,
I know exactly what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It goes back to that element of proof.
yes,
You
exactly.
know,
And
yeah.
at the
It's like,
time,
oh, it's like, okay, well, if you're really there, tell me the population of Europe.
yes, yeah,
How does that move anything forward?
right,
And that's what they say. That's
yeah,
what they answer. It's like that moves that they've said that to me because I've asked that question on behalf of others.
yeah,
Like I'll have clients who'll say, well, I asked them to do this and they didn't. And I'm like, and the angels say, how does that help anything?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
they're not going to play around with giving you lottery numbers or parking spots
right,
or, light traffic or whatever.
yeah,
That's not their jam. Not at all.
yeah. Well, it was very interesting. And now I know, I was like, okay, those energies exist. And that was pretty much my main, but interestingly, what happened after that, now when I do call in the four directions, I can sense the presence of them, like this enormous
Yes.
presence, but they don't necessarily talk to me. They don't talk
Hmm.
to me. I just feel like they're kind of, you know, I can acknowledge their presence, but they're not,
Right.
they don't talk to me. So I do want to ask you about this because I can't even imagine what that would be like to, you know, meet another person and know now that you have this ability to sense, wow, some people have this angelic soul, this angelic resonance. And then you meet Jody, and now there's this whole thing flying open of the archangels want you to share this with
Mhm.
people. So could you
Right.
talk a little bit about the program and who it's for, how people can work with the information within it?
Sure. The program, and Jody and I worked on it pretty much full time. In fact, that was when I left the Beyond the Reiki Gateway podcast
Mm,
because the work with the archangels was becoming so demanding. I did not have time for much else in my life, and
yeah,
I still had a Reiki practice. So that's why I left.
Yeah.
That's the main reason, because it took so much of my time and energy. And the entire project from start to when we finally launched it was well over a year. It took
Wow.
us about 14 to 15 months. And this was, weekly, sometimes more frequently phone calls with me and Jody, constant texting, emails, she's telling me what the archangels told her to do. I would say, "Oh, I got a message like that myself." Um, it is the bottom line is the program is ostensibly for angelic souls
Yeah.
and those who wish to become angelic activation practitioners to also, activate angelic souls. However, the program is for really for anyone
Hmm.
who wants to develop a relationship with spirit and the
Yeah.
high guides. Initially we both went into this, Jody and I, with the thought that, okay, it's for angelic souls. But as time went on, the angels were kind of like, see, we told you this is going to have a wide range
Yeah.
of options. They would kind of lightly scold Jody for thinking too much in human terms. Like, it's not just angelic souls, it's for anyone who wants to expand their knowledge and their interaction and communication with spirit.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
keep that's really who it's for.
Right.
However, the bulk of our group, they're angelic souls.
Hmm.
They are angelic souls. We have a few who went through the program to be AAPs, Angelic Activation Practitioners. And I actually think they're also angelic souls. They are just choosing to activate others as well.
Yeah.
However, there have been those who are not angelic souls. It's not everybody is. And I would say of the various soul types that exist, the angelic souls are probably the or the smallest in number,
Hmm.
because they incarnate infrequently.
Yeah.
Earth-based souls make up the bulk of souls on planet Earth, followed by interplanetary souls. Um, but nowadays, there's just so many more of them, angelic
Yeah.
souls on planet Earth. So, yeah, it's really for anyone, Yolanda. Um, and if someone happens to think they're an angelic soul, and it turns out that my opinion is they are not, it
Mm.
doesn't matter. You
Right.
know, the angels themselves have told us that they will very likely be able to contact and channel the higher guides.
Yeah.
You know, nothing wrong with that. And they may very well be able to channel the archangels. There's nothing that says they cannot. It may not be a big factor on their life path, though. That's
Yeah.
what determines it. What did you sign up for? Why are you here? Is this part of your life path? And if it's not, well, maybe you're going to have a little more of a challenging time doing it. But it's not to say you can't, Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yeah. Like you
Nothing is
just,
ever off the table, right?
right. Like if I decided tomorrow that I wanted to sing, I would have to practice a lot. Like perhaps
Exactly.
I could get there, but initially it's not going to be easy for me. I understand. But,
Yes.
it's interesting. So, and this seems so timely because there is a lot going on in our world. But
Hmm.
simultaneously, I think back to when I first learned Reiki and, became consciously interested in all of these things. It still wasn't that popular, I would say. You would
Hmm.
say Reiki and people would be like, what are you talking about? Whereas nowadays, not only is it in hospitals, and if you say it, people kind of, they've heard of it,
Hmm.
even if they're not fully familiar. But there's a lot more curiosity now. A lot more people
Yes.
are awakening to there's something other than how we've been doing things. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. I mean, the timing of it all and people being given something like this, an opportunity to turn on the light switch, as you say, and then
Hmm.
figure out how that brings them into awareness of maybe some higher guidance, whether it's angels or higher guides and teachers
Hmm.
that are meant to support how they can also, offer support to humanity at this time.
Right. Right. Um, I'm not sure what your question is, but what you said
The
is
timing.
absolutely true.
Yeah, so just
Oh, the
curious about,
timing.
yeah, your just in you witnessing all of this, even in the work that you do. I mean, it seems like, do you think this is going to keep accelerating
Yes.
because of this time? Like, what are your thoughts around what
Yes.
we're actually seeing and then how
Yes.
humanity is responding?
That's a good question. Now, yeah, timing is so important. I can see it in my practice. And even when I look over the years since I started my practice, I was had the opportunity to go through some of the more the older articles I had written back in the day. And there was an article I wrote in, I think it was 2016 about holy fire Reiki. It might have even been 2015, and how it was preparing us for the new consciousness. And
Mm,
we were in the shift. And even then, I was talking about these things.
yeah,
And it has only accelerated. And I see it in my practice because people, what I'm seeing is those who really didn't have a lot of interest or background or anything to do with Reiki or spirituality or angels, they're now showing up for sessions with a lot of questions.
right.
And more often than not, they have had an experience that propelled them to make an appointment.
Yeah.
I hear this so often. I just happened to be looking for something that wasn't even related to Reiki, but then for some reason your name popped up and here we are, you
Yes.
know. And it was, I find it fascinating. And what is also interesting and very affirming to me is that during my sessions, when I'm working with people during Reiki sessions, I get a lot of information. And one of almost always, I get information, especially from the archangels, about how the network is growing, the network of souls.
Uh,
The network is expanding, it's growing. And every time I do a Reiki session with someone, or every time I speak to someone about spirituality or Reiki or the angels, that's another soul where light switch is on,
right.
you know?
Yep.
And the network is just expanding. And I get these images of it's like a circle of hands just all joined together. And there are, I can't even imagine how many hands, trillions perhaps. Then they are encircling the planet and they're just holding it. But all these hands are connected. We're all one. And
Yes.
I love when I get that image because it almost brings me to tears. It's just so beautiful.
Yes.
And the network is growing. It is growing. So everything we do with love at its core matters. Even just smiling at a stranger on the street,
Hmm.
like good morning and smiling, or, speaking to the grocery store cashier, or allowing someone to get ahead of you in a traffic line. Those things, they matter. People do those things and don't realize how powerful they are,
Yeah.
you know, because those things are being done from the energy of love. You're
Yes.
being generous, you're being kind, you're being understanding, right?
Yeah. No,
Yeah. So
I agree.
the timing is absolutely crucial.
Hmm.
And, from like almost 10 years ago when I took Holy Fire Reiki to now, I can, it's just like that snowball. We're back to the snowball.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that you describe it all in the way that you just did, Kathleen, because it reminds me of, recently I was interviewed by Colleen and Robin,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I was saying to them how, kind of this recognition came in of how we're often looking for or believe like our true nature is going to be this thing that's gifted to us once we, pass all the tests or something like this. But rather, we see glimpses of it when we are in those states of just
Yeah.
being kind and being
Yeah.
compassionate without, any strings attached. It's just that beauty that is within us that we often see it. I mean, we see it all the time. It's just we
Yes, we
don't
do.
always associate it with I don't know. Maybe because we're working on to sustain it more, like to be in those expressions more. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's a beautiful reminder that we see those expressions that exist within us already all the time. So I do
Yes.
want to ask you because, this is on the site. And for anyone who's listening who's curious, you do have the guiding and placement questions, and you also have
Hmm.
the verbal activations for angelic souls. So could
Hmm.
you talk a little bit about what each of those are?
Sure. If anyone is interested in reading about the program on my website, I suggest you do so. It's laid out in a very easy to follow format, and it's kind of, chronological. The sequential, I guess would be a better word.
Yeah.
Um, so the first step is the answering the placement questions and then sending them forward to either myself or Jody. We then answer them and suggest next steps for the individual. Often there is the course that we recommend because it fills in a lot of the gaps that many people have as far as what's involved in channeling and working with high guides and just working with spirit,
Right.
putting channeling aside for a moment. The verbal activations have been given to us by the archangels. That is 100% channeled information. That
Mm.
is from the archangels. And they have told us that there are some individuals who will activate, they're angelic souls who will be activated simply by reading the verbal activation.
Mhm.
They said that's not going to happen with everyone. It's probably not even the majority, but there are some who will feel the shift within themselves just on reading that verbal activation. So we have it on the website for people to read. And there's a second one for the practitioners, for those who wish to become angelic activation practitioners. And honestly, I think of it as a gauge. Like, okay, gauging your interest, your commitment, your potential.
Mhm.
If you read this verbal activation, and I've had many people, like especially those in the program, have said, when I read it, I couldn't get through it because I was crying so hard
Wow.
because they were so emotional. Well, that's a huge sign,
Yes.
you know. Um, so it's a gauge of where you are on your path. And maybe this is helping to answer the question, is this for me?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, the verbal activations are there as a service more than anything for people to kind of determine for themselves where they are and if this is something they really would like to do.
So the other question then is if someone decides to take the course, because the course is there on the site and it's self-paced, you
Mm-hmm.
can do it at your own pace. Is that different than getting the angelic activation from you
Yes,
directly?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. The course is usually offered after they have answered the placement questions.
Yes.
Usually, Jody and I review the answers. Jody is the one who typically responds to the folks who have answered, and she and I will discuss it, and she will advise like recommended next steps. This is where I think, you need a little more information, those kinds of things. More often than not, she recommends the course because, again, the course was primarily channeled
Right.
from the archangels. Jody is a retired teacher, so she was able to kind of put it all together in a cohesive format, but it's channeled from the archangels, and it really zeroes in on the kinds of things that an angelic soul or a practitioner, a hopeful practitioner, would need to know. Like the different clairs, right? Soul types, types of channeling, and energy work, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's very, very helpful. I think almost there was only one or two instances where someone had a lot of experience and they didn't need the course, and
Yeah.
we would tell them that you don't really need it. However, if you want to take it, fine. We always leave it up to the individual. Believe me, there is no pressure. It's like if
Yeah.
you want to do this, that's wonderful. If you don't, that's wonderful too.
Yeah.
Um, but the course is something that when people take it, they're really glad they did. There's a lot of questions for self-reflection, which kind of you get to dig down deep into who you are and what you
Mhm.
want. And people have really found it very, very beneficial and enlightening.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But the activation is different. That is the energetic portion. And that's the part I conduct. So let's say somebody takes the course, and most often when they take the course, they then want to do an activation, whether it's to activate their angelic soul nature or to, become an angelic activation practitioner. Um, Most of them, as I said earlier, take the angelic soul activations. Then they schedule that with me,
Mhm.
and I do that. I do the angelic soul activations in the context of a Reiki session.
Oh,
So it's like kind of in there. I start off with my usual Reiki routine, but then very early on in the Reiki session, I do the activation. There's a certain procedure,
right.
again, directed and created by the archangels.
Hmm.
They told us this is what you do. And even to the as specific as telling us what crystals are to be used.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And for just those who may be curious, it's rose quartz, clear quartz, moonstone, and what's the fourth one? Angelite. Yeah,
Uh,
that's the obvious one, I guess.
yes.
So, yeah.
Well, it is so interesting, Kathleen. I'm very thankful that you said yes to coming to have this conversation because, as I told you, even prior to us recording, it's interesting that a lot of these kinds of conversations are coming up more now.
Hmm.
And people are, I think, much more curious about tuning into their own access to higher wisdom.
Yes.
Whereas when I first came into this work, I think there was a lot of attention on just the externalized help everyone outside of me. And now
Hmm.
there seems to be this coming back around to how do I really go deeper into whatever my own awakening type energy is
Exactly.
while also holding space for others, of course. So, yeah, it's just all very fascinating. So, I want to make sure everyone knows how to work with you. And also, are you still podcasting now? And what is the name? What do you talk about?
No, I'm not podcasting right
Can we go
now.
on the
I'm
archives?
working on an online community is what I'm
Oh,
doing. I'm ready to launch it publicly. And we'll be doing that later this month. It's called
wow.
Soul Community.
Okay.
Soul's opening to universal love.
Mhm.
It's an acronym for soul. Um, for Soul's opening to universal love. And I'm very excited about it. It's on Mighty Network. And we have a space within Mighty Networks it's called Navigating the Shift. And it's about all we can do to help each other and ourselves through this time on Earth. You know, tools and support and learning and wisdom. I mean, it's a really good. I love it. We have a
Mhm.
lot of fun, and then we also have sort of like a little social space to hang out in, heart space. And I'm in the process of creating a Reiki space. Of course, it
Wow.
has to have a Reiki space.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm pretty happy about it. Yeah, but I'm not podcasting right now. I honestly, my life is pretty full
Yeah.
and I have to be careful about taking on too much. I've done that in the past and yeah, it doesn't always end well. So
No, it doesn't.
I,
I actually have
yeah,
been saying recently, I'm saying no a lot more next year. So
yes,
I really
yes,
understand. So the
yes,
soul community, even if there's a link available now, of course, I will share it in the show
yes.
description. But whenever it's available, if you give it to me, I'll add it in to the show
Hmm.
description. And
Yes.
then your website, universesoulheart.net, I
Hmm.
will be
Yes.
sure to share that obviously in the show description as well. But just wanted to also let people know, as we've mentioned, you are a practitioner of Reiki and you have a lot of I mean, you do Reiki crystal healing. You are a practitioner of Holy Fire 3 Reiki
Hmm.
and also some spiritual guidance.
Hmm.
I also saw in here that there was a new ebook.
Yes, I have an
Yeah.
ebook out. Let Reiki guide the way.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So I'm going to put the link to that as well. Could you tell us a
Okay.
little bit about that before we go?
It's a compilation of articles I've written over the years about Reiki that were curated for me by Reiki Rays, as a matter of fact.
Oh, wow.
And I think a lovely compilation of some of the better articles that can help someone who is interested in pursuing Reiki either as a profession or just as practice for themselves and others.
Yeah.
And I love my ebook.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's if Reiki is something that is near and dear to your heart, as it is to mine, I think you would find it well worth it.
Yeah, and it's funny how earlier you were saying when you were curious about hypnotherapy and, just I guess anything in this realm, you had to go get a book. And now we have so many resources. Thank goodness. It's incredible.
I
We're
know.
so fortunate now to have access to so
Hmm.
much information. So I will
Yes.
definitely put the link to the book, Let Reiki Guide the Way. And
Thank you.
you all can also see Kathleen in the Reiki Rays Global Healing Summit, where we have a different kind of conversation, but also very educational, beautiful conversation. So thank you for taking time to sit with me again.
Thank you, Yolanda. I always enjoy speaking with you. I hope we can do this again sometime. Talk about
Yes,
something different, but
you have plenty to pull from, Kathleen. So believe
and
me.
I'm happy to share it with anybody who wants to stand still long enough.
Yes, I really, really, I would love to have you back, especially to kind
Great.
of dive in on the past life regression, because woo, that's
Yeah. It's a lot
interesting.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you so much, and everyone, of course, look down in the show description to get all of the links to connect with Kathleen and her work, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, beautiful alchemist. First, I want to thank Kathleen for taking time to share her work with us today. She, again, can be found at universesoulheart.net. That is her website. The link is down in the show description. Kathleen also has a new community launching. If you want to join her in her community, the link is down in the show description. It is called Soul Community, and Soul is an acronym, SOUL. And she has a book called Let Reiki Guide the Way, which I will also include down in the show description. I want to thank you all so much for supporting Reiki Radio. I want to remind you that you can join me on Fridays at 4 p.m. Pacific, which is 7 p.m. Eastern. I am joined by other podcasters who are on the Awakening Airwaves network. So if you go to wherever you're listening to Reiki Radio, even on YouTube, if you type in Awakening Airwaves, you can follow that platform. And there are other beautiful practitioners that are sharing information to support your path as well. Well, we all meet together on Friday evenings. Not all of us, but there's a mix of who shows up to join me on Fridays at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, and we are covering different topics within this realm of spirituality, and it's live. And the thing that's so fun is that people are coming and chatting with us in the chat box real time so that we can, read your comments, answer your questions. It's just very interactive. It's been a lot of fun. So I'll put the link to join us for that as well down in the show description. And if you want to join me for Intuitive Mastery or the Alchemy Circle, be sure to register right away because class starts November 5th. All right, my loves, I will see you very, very soon. I hope that you have a beautiful week ahead. And remember to always journey in love.